Hi there, it's Chris Barrow, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this interview with my very good friend Mark Topley. Mark, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Chris.
And just to explain the history here, Mark and I, we've known each other for 12 years, is that
Yep,
right?
2006.
And 12 years ago, I met Mark because my wife Annie had actually done a walk of the Great Wall of China for charity. And she met Mark during that fundraising event, which was 13 years ago or so. And we then met, and at that time, I think, Mark, you were, was it Ops Director?
That's right,
for Bridge to Aid.
Yep.
And through that connection and through Annie, our relationship with Bridge to Aid has just flourished and grown over that 12-year period. And so Mark and I have got a lot of history.
Yeah.
And along the way, Mark, you became the Chief Executive of Bridge to Aid, so really responsible for the overall strategic direction of the charity and so on. But things have now changed. There's been a big change in your life over the last few months. And you know what, I've been busy and we've not really had a chance to catch up, so I'm really interested to get the backstory myself. So what have you been up to?
Well, basically, after fantastic sort of 12 years with Bridge to Aid, living overseas, doing all the things that we've talked about, we came back to the UK, took 2015, and really decided the time was right last year to sort of hand the reins over to new management, let people take Bridge to Aid on. And what I'm very excited to be doing is to be starting up a consultancy business all around corporate social responsibility, and specifically helping dental practices and dental businesses to really get value out of CSR for the benefit of everybody that they deal with.
So just to clarify that, you are now, I suppose just like me, you're now a freelancer, you're running your own show.
That's right, yeah.
And that's a massive culture change from being at the head of a pretty elaborate organisation with offices in 2 different continents.
Yeah.
So what's it feeling like being a freelancer now?
Oh, it's exciting and scary all at the same time. I mean, the opportunity is there, and I'm really enjoying working with the people that I'm working with already, and really enjoying explaining what I know about corporate social responsibility and the things that I've learned over the last few years. Working with some fantastic dental practices in the UK, some very big businesses in the UK and globally as well on their corporate social responsibility. So it's very exciting to be using those skills to help other people, and great to be still in the industry and using all the relationships that I've built up during that time. Yep. But it's kind of like getting everything going and really helping people to understand what it is that I'm trying to do and what corporate social responsibility can do for them. So it's very much an educational kind of stage at the moment, as well as working with clients.
And clarifying that, you are focusing on the dental sector in the UK, so in that sense it's kind of business as usual, because the Rolodex of contacts will be the same ones that you were dealing with at Bridge to Aid as well.
That's right, yeah, it's good. I mean, already some of my really good friends that I used to work with while I was CEO have come on board as clients, and that's really good, because it's interesting, when you wear a charity hat, you can say the same things as when you're a consultant, but people will tend to listen to you more. I think I'm enjoying being independent and being able to give some very very independent advice to people, so to broaden out what they're doing with their corporate social responsibility. Obviously still hitting the dental sector, because as dental practices that makes the most sense, and that's what the evidence would suggest. If you're a dental practice, you should be working with dental charities as well as ones that make sense for your particular team, your audience, the community that you're part of. Yeah. So I mean, enjoying all that sort of side of things and really getting that message across to people.
All right. So the reality is that people have got all of these different interpretations of what CSR is, and I suppose you've got to educate your audience first of all to say CSR embraces all of these different activities. And it can be anything from somebody raising £5 to raising £50,000. It's all CSR.
Yep.
But when people contact you for the first time and say, okay, well, talk to me, where do you begin that journey with them? Where does it all start?
Well, CSR is all about what kind of company you are, what you believe as an organisation, how you treat your people, and how you impact on the world around you, how you touch each of the stakeholders. So it's not just about raising money, it's much more about values and who you are as an organisation. You know, it's about good governance as an organisation, so being transparent and ethical in everything that you're doing. It's about being a good citizen in your community, so that's your community locally, but also your community nationally and internationally. And then it's about how you treat your team. Are you ethical and transparent? Are you fair in the way that you treat your team? And those three things together would be seen as corporate social responsibility. So for me, the key things for that is obviously you need to operate ethically. You know, the GDC and the CQC and others will manage all that for you. The two areas where I come in is when it comes to how do you have an impact on the people around you? How do you have an impact on your local community and on good causes nationally? And how do you get your team involved in doing that? Because CSR can do a lot of good things for your business, which are about much more than just raising money for a good cause. And I think what I've seen and what motivated me to start this was that it's not that nobody's doing any CSR. What I typically find is that people don't think through why it is they're doing it. And so then when it comes to actually implementing activities and creating a plan or those sorts of things, people don't really get the benefits that they deserve and that they should be getting, either for their cause or for themselves as a business or for their team. And so that's what motivates me, is getting those plans together, getting people facing in the right direction from a heart of this is why we're doing this, and then putting together a systematic plan so that they gain all the benefits for themselves, for the cause, and for their PR and their place in the world.
So you've worked for a long time with dentists in the UK that have been strong supporters of CSR.
Yeah.
And not only in your previous incarnation, not only was Bridge to Aid a beneficiary of that, but obviously those dentists have supported other causes as well. And certainly you and I share clients who have supported Bridge to Aid, but they've also done things in the local postcode, which have been parallel and simultaneous to that. Now, if you look at that cohort of dental practice owners, the ones that have pressed the button and they've said, we need to do this, what do you think it is that they have in common? What's the trigger? You know, but dentistry is the delivery of healthcare, so the first hat that a dentist is wearing is the clinician's hat.
Yeah.
Dentistry is also a business, so the second hat that the practice owner is wearing is a hat around profitability.
Yep.
Dentistry is also about leadership, so there's another hat that a dental practice owner has to wear, which is how do I lead this team of people? And now you're coming along with a fourth hat, which is the CSR hat.
Yep.
And you know, there'll be some people watching this video who think, well, don't you think I've got enough hats to wear already? What is it that makes people put that fourth hat on and say, do you know what, we're going to do this?
I think they understand the benefits of it. I think the people that I've worked with have seen that it doesn't take an awful lot of effort to get a huge amount of benefit from having a good CSR strategy. That's the carrot. So for your team, for your patient profile, for your PR in the local community, it can be a very good thing. And all the practices I've worked with that have done it well have done those three things very well. The stick is that people expect it nowadays. So we from a generation where it was less important but becoming more so. Now with the millennials coming through, they have a very strong sense of identity around causes and doing good at work. As customers, they're very discerning as well. Well up into the 90% of people will have a more positive perception of an organisation if it does good for the community, if it does good for the environment. So you've got carrot and stick, and I think the companies that are really taking advantage of CSR and building it into what they're doing are recognising that consumers and staff really value making a difference through their work. And a lot of people will expect you to do good, particularly if you're trying to recruit in some of the more competitive professions like dentistry would be. If you want people to stay with you, and if you want to attract people, then having a good CSR strategy, having that good feel good around your team, which CSR plays a big part in, can be something really attractive. You know, people get attracted by, yes, you know, we want a decent salary, but there's a lot of evidence to show that people that are working as part of a positive culture, which CSR can contribute towards, where they feel engaged, where they feel like they're making a difference through their work, will put up with an awful lot more and will be much more loyal to the company in the long run if those activities are built in, and if they feel some sort of sense of purpose and identity together as a team. So that's one of the things. The other one is that I think people see that by doing some of these things, they make a difference in the actual team dynamics. So, you know, chatting to some friends recently who run some fairly large companies, they got their team involved in some activities where they had to plan together, they had to work together, and actually the spin-offs in the business were huge because people that had been quite siloed in different departments had to come together for a bit of a physical challenge event. Through raising the money, through organising events themselves, they've actually broken down some of those silos, built more communication channels, and established a much better collaboration. So there's a benefit for the business, and CSR can be a vehicle for that if people choose to put that in. But it has to be planned, it has to be well worked out, and there has to be a big drive of why we're doing it as an organisation.
Okay, so I'm getting a really clear picture of the benefits in terms of team. Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing you say is it's great for attraction. Yep. From a recruitment point of view. It's good for retention. Yep. In terms of keeping people as part of that tribe that you build in. And it's also really motivating. It's giving the team a lot of motivation and buzz around what they're doing. And the full thing is that by getting involved in these CSR events, you're asking people to collaborate who may previously have been stuck on different floors in a building or different rooms in a building. They're all now in there together doing things. I can see all of those benefits. The second thing you said was about, you described it as the PR side of things for the practice. So just talk to me a little bit about how that works.
Well, I think, you know, if you follow people will understand that, you know, generating good content about what kind of business you are is really important. And I think people are always looking for opportunities for their social media, for their newsletters, of what is this kind of place like to engage with as a business. You know, 60% of consumers nowadays will base their decision on where they buy from on their perception of the company rather than their perception of the product. So you're constantly trying to build a brand out there. You're constantly trying to communicate that you are a caring place to get treatment from. You're a professional place to get treatment from. It's a nice place to be. When I come through the door, I feel warmth because people are engaging with me. And you build all those sorts of things, I believe, by showing that you are human, that there's an authenticity to your brand. So when you say, you know, come to us because we're really good people to deal with, and they can see that you engage with good causes, either in the community by doing oral health education in schools or in different institutions in the community, or by giving money away, or by releasing your team to do volunteering, or by raising money as an organisation, then I think people then see that there's an authenticity to you, and by doing those activities you're generating lots of great content, photographs, videos, stories of things that you can share with your audience, which really, really helps them to see the kind of practice that you are, the kind of team that you are to work with, and that's only a good thing for you as a business.
And what's interesting about listening to that, I've got a thing that I talk about when I'm lecturing on marketing. You know, I'm constantly getting questions from people, which is, you've told us we need a patient newsletter, but what should we put in it? You've told us that we should have a practice blog, what should we put in it? You've told us that we should be active on social media, what should we put in there? And the problem is that left to their own devices, you end up with content that I always describe as BDS, and that's boring dental stuff, because, you know, it's how to floss, how to brush, National Smile Week and all this type of thing. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for oral health education, but if it's 100% of your content, you're going to find it very difficult to engage your audience. So I've got this 80-15-5 rule where I say that 80% of your marketing content ought to be stories about the difference you've made to your patients. 15% of your marketing content ought to be stories about the difference you've made to your team members. And then 5% is that boring dental stuff, because you do actually need to tell your audience that you're at the cutting edge, you're doing digital dentistry, you're going on postgraduate training, you're buying new equipment and so on. So what you're talking about is sitting right in that 15% zone, because you are then able to tell stories across all of those multimedia channels and multi-digital channels. You're able to tell stories about the CSR activities that the team have been involved in. So that's really good content.
And the sort of business that you are. I think people like to buy from people that they trust and that they can see are nice people. I've got a friend who volunteered several times in Tanzania. And he, is an implant dentist, specialist, very good. And he would have photographs of him doing his dentistry in Tanzania, because he wanted to show people that actually, yes, this is an expensive treatment you're coming in for, and you may be nervous about the treatment, all those sorts of things. But he wanted to sort of broaden out that he wasn't just a guy sitting in a chair in some scrubs, but actually he had a heart and he had a passion for other people. And I think that helps to show people who you are, what your beliefs are as a human being, and it helps to build that connection, which is so important for dentists, to build trust with their patients.
So that really covers that third base, which was the patients themselves. I know I'm almost reflecting what you've said, that the patients are able to see that it's not just about the dentistry, and it's not just about the money, that actually you're a good egg. Yep. And you believe in putting something back into the world, which is a fantastic thing. Okay, so I get that. So I'm feeling like I understand more about how CSR fits into the scheme of things.
Yep.
We get to that point where everybody says, "What a good idea," and then you drive off down the road, or they finish watching your web broadcast, or they finish hearing you speak at a conference, and they all turn up the next day.
Yep.
And it's same day, different stuff. Where do you start?
Yeah, very easy. You've got to find out where it is you're trying to get to. And what I do with people is to say, okay, what do you believe as an organisation? When it comes to the difference that you want to make to your people, to your community, what is it you believe as an organisation? Who are you trying to be, and what are you trying to get to? So try and visualise, if I came back in 2 years' time, and we talked about your CSR and the difference that it was making to the practice, what would it look like? So we get people to think about that, and there's some exercises we do to get to that point. So you got your vision of where you're trying to get to, and then it's kind of like, okay, let's look at each of the streams. So in terms of the overall vision, the plan that you're going to use to get there, how it's going to impact your team, how it's going to impact your patients, how it's going to impact on your PR, how it's going to impact the good cause. Let's look at each of those strands and say, well, where are you now? And let's be brutal about it. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's see what the gap is between your aspiration and where you are now. And then let's think about what are the ways that we could take a first step towards getting to where you want to be in each one of those directions. And one of the things that I'll help people to do is to say, okay, well, these are the steps over the next 12 months. These are the next steps over the next 18 months. So we then get an idea about where it is that you're trying to get to. They need to engage the team. The team are very important in this. And I think, as a practice owner, you can have a vision of where it is you're trying to get to. But this is a great exercise for leadership in terms of developing your leadership skills and your standing as a leader, is to say, this is what I want to do, and how do you think we could do it? Because when I was leading Bridge to Aid, it was very much, okay, well, this is what we're trying to get. This is what we're trying to get to, but how do we get there, guys? You know some of these things better than I do. What are the steps that we need to take? And you get everybody in the room, get the ideas together, you start to put that into some sort of plan and get people excited. So when you do come up with a plan, it's not, okay, here's the latest tablet from on high. This is a plan that we've done collaboratively. So engage the team, put a plan together, and again, I help people to do that, a very simple process. There's two key things with CSR. The first thing is you've got to go big or go home. You've got to commit to it. It's absolutely vital. Otherwise, people will see through it as some sort of tick box exercise that you're doing it because you want to look good. So you've got to go big or go home. So really commit to it. But then you've also got to do the sort of the Goldilocks thing, which is just enough, just the right amount of activity. So we're committed to this strategy, but in this season we might only be able to do one or two things, and they might not be, you know, big fundraising events or a huge thing. It might just be a couple of little things that we're going to do, but it gives us some momentum towards our bigger goal of what we're trying to achieve. We set a target. I think targets are really key, because then that gives you something to come back to month to say, okay, well, we said we were going to raise X thousand for this cause. Where are we? You know, what are we doing about it? It gives people something to collaborate around, which is outside of the normal KPIs that people are working on week to week, month to month. And I think it's something that people can get excited about. I'd get them to engage also with the cause. So whatever cause it is that you choose, or whatever range of causes you choose, to really get value out of the charity and out of the cause for that, so that people understand why it is that they're raising money and what the money's going to do. So that's the planning element. And then it's about execution, and that's something that we did really well with Bridge to Aid. Was, okay, we've got a plan, now we've got to execute it. Things will change, things will go wrong, you know, we'll have a crisis in the practice, and that activity will have to fall off. How do we get back on track?
Yep.
How do we measure? How do we keep people excited right the way through to the end of the project? So it's those stages. It's envisioning, it's evaluating, it's engaging the team, it's planning, and it's executing. And that's how you start.
So here we are, practice owner, doing 35 hours a week clinical,
Yep.
and then another 15 hours a week of ownership. Practice manager, doing 35 hours a week of practice management,
Yep.
and then probably a few other things as well. And you know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
Everybody's busy.
Yep.
I turn up and I warble on about marketing, and then stuff doesn't get done. The next trainer or consultant turns up and starts talking about selling or treatment coordination or direct advertising or whatever it is next. And, you know, the ring binders go on the shelf, the
Yep.
courses get attended, the CPD mounts up, but actually not a lot changes in terms of the day-to-day operations. So there'll be some people listening to this that will say, all well and good, but
Yep.
I'm already busy.
Yep.
How on earth am I going to add this to my existing task list? So what's your response to that? I mean, by the way, I'm interested because they're asking me the same question,
Yeah.
so I'm interested to see what your answer is.
The answer is this is a vehicle for a lot of the things that you've just described. So when it comes to your marketing, when it comes to your team, when it comes to a lot of those things that you've got to do anyway, this is a fantastic vehicle. And for me, it's a meaningful vehicle to deliver a lot of the stuff that we're going to have to do anyway. You know, if you want an effective team, you've got to build them, you've got to make an investment in them. Well, CSR can give you a great vehicle to be able to do that. So rather than taking people off on an outward bound course that, you know, will be fun and you'll get muddy, why not engage them instead in some kind of activity which has a fundraising element to it, or is going to make a difference?
Yeah.
Why not release people's time into the community so that they can go and do oral health education or, you know, other stuff in the community that will make a real difference to people? So that's the team aspect of it. When it comes to the marketing side of things, it's generating content for you, as we've said. And in terms of building trust and patient confidence, again, it's doing those things. So the way that I always say is that it doesn't have to be a lot of investment in terms of time if you take the time to plan things at the front end. So that's where I come in. I can help with doing that, and I can work alongside whoever it is that people appoint as their champion in the practice, and mostly that's the practice manager, because they have the decision-making capability and their fingers in all the different aspects of the business. But giving them a simple plan that they can deliver with the team, which is not going to take up too much time, and is actually going to help them in some of the other areas where they need to make improvements anyway.
Yeah, okay, get it. So, Mark, let's imagine we've got somebody that's watching this video and they are motivated by what it is that you've said. Wouldn't it be great for us to have a more focused approach to our CSR? I like the sound of this guy, he's a good egg, sounds like he could be very, very helpful. So what are the very, very practical first steps on a journey to Mark Topley?
Sure. Well, you head to my website, which is marktopley.co.uk. You can also find me on Twitter, which is Mark_Topley. And I'm also on Facebook, got a Facebook page as well. So you can see some of my content there. If you go to my website, you can sign up to my newsletter. And in return for my newsletter, I'll give you a free download, which is a 3-page introduction to CSR, what it's all about, what the benefits are, how people can get started, and some of the key things that they need to remember about a CSR strategy. You can also hit the Contact Me Now link on there, and we can set up a conversation just to begin to explore what it is that you're wanting to achieve within your practice. So those are the things that you can do to get in touch and get things started.
Okay, so as a marketer, I'm hearing that's the free stuff. So I'm hearing about a free download, which is a guide. I'm hearing about a free newsletter. And I'm also presumably, statement of the obvious, there's going to be more content on your social media channels and so on. And I've also heard free consult in there, so that presumably that's either a telephone or a Skype consult, is it?
Yeah.
And what you'll do there, just talk me through that free consult, what's going to happen there?
So that's really an introductory thing, just to see if CSR is something that you're wanting to pursue. We can chat about what your aims are, those sorts of things. If you want to go beyond that, then for £75, what I'll do is I'll do an assessment of your current CSR. And for that, I'll look at your Facebook page, look at your website. I'll talk to you. I'll get you to answer some questions about the practice and how you've tried to use CSR in the past. And what I'll then do is give you some very straightforward advice on what you can do in each of the areas that I focus on, looking at your website, looking at your communications with your team, ways to work better with good causes. So I'll put that in there for you and then give you some very simple steps that you can then follow. If you want to go beyond that, then in a couple of months' time, there'll be an online course, which is a 7-part online course, and that's priced at $299 plus VAT. And then if you want to go beyond that, you want me actually to come in and advise you in the practice, then anything from 1 day up to a retainer over the course of a year is on a daily rate, which is then tailored to meet your particular needs and what it is that you want to achieve.
Super. So there's a very, very nice, clear pathway there in terms of engagement and involvement that people can see quite clearly, and obviously they're going to be able to see that all over your website as well.
Yeah.
Super. Thanks, Mark.
Great. Thanks very much.